Hello everyone, this is James Shore with another how-to video. I'm recording this on August 26th, 2015. In this chapter, we have been looking at testing our code, and specifically, we have been looking at automating those tests. If you recall from the last couple of episodes, there are three parts to test automation. We need an assertion library, a test framework, and a way of running those tests in real browsers. We looked at assertion libraries and test frameworks in the last couple of episodes. In this episode, we're going to look at running our test in the browser. Now, if you recall, what we have here is the ability to run our test using Mocha, which we currently have installed just in our node modules. So if we run Mocha out of node modules /bin or \bin on Windows and pass in our test file, then we'll see that we have two tests running. Now, the problem with this is that this code is running in Node, and we're going to be writing code that runs in the browser. Our tab application is going to run in real browsers, and every browser has its own JavaScript engine. It has its own way of running JavaScript. The only way to know for sure that the code we write works in the browser is to run it in the browser. Doing this test here does not run in the browser. It runs in Node. And even though they're both running JavaScript, it's not the same engine, so it could break. Now, basics like addition are implemented consistently across all browsers in Node. They all work the same way. But there are some things that don't work the same way. Some newer features of the JavaScript language, you may have heard of ECMAScript 6 or ES6 or ECMAScript or JavaScript 2015, ECMAScript 2015, whatever it's called. This is a new version of JavaScript that's just now coming out, and over time, bits and pieces of it are being added to various browsers. They're supported in some browsers and not others. If we decide to use some of those features, or worse yet, accidentally use one of those new features, thinking that it works because it's supported in Node, and then we run in a real browser, and that thing is not implemented in that browser, if support for that function is not available, then our code will fail and we'll never know it. The only way to know for sure if our code works in a particular browser is to actually run our tests in that browser. And we could do that manually, of course, but that gets old really quick. What we need is the ability to run our tests automatically in all the browsers we care about. We need a cross-browser test runner. And that's what we're going to look at in this episode. Cross-browser test running is kind of an esoteric idea, and when I first started testing JavaScript, 5 years ago now, it was very, very hard to find any way of doing that. Luckily, these days, we've got several really good tools for it. The two most popular are called Karma and Testem scripts. They both do essentially the same thing. They allow you to start a server, a little server that will serve your tests out to the browsers, and then they run special code in the browser. This is called capturing the browser, that when you run your tests, sends your JavaScript down to the browser and runs it. And for more information about how this works, see this Lessons Learned episode right here. Now, this Lessons Learned episode talks about Karma, but the same mechanism, the same approach applies to both Karma and Testem. Now, of these two, Testem is actually got a nicer user interface, and I much prefer it. I have a lab entry. One of the lab episodes is about Testem. You can find it right here. And we go through Testem in detail, and I really liked it. Unfortunately, at the time I reviewed Testem, it really did not play well with automated build scripts. And that was a deal breaker, unfortunately. I haven't gone back to it since then, and it's been a year or so. But looking at it now, I don't see any indication that they've added the APIs necessary to play well with build scripts. So that leaves us with Karma, which is potentially more full-featured and certainly works for everything I've tried it for. So as a result, even though I like Testem scripts a lot, we are going to use Karma for this example. And this is what I use for all my own code because it's just absolutely essential that I be able to script my tests, that I have the ability to run them from my build script. To do that, what we need to do is install it with npm as usual. That's going to be npm install Karma. We will save that to our package.json and we'll ignore scripts as always. That takes a while to complete because there is a lot in there. Once it's done, we'll check it in. So we'll add that and then commit it. You're going to see I got a lot of warnings out of this. You might get those as well. They can be ignored. That's just a little cross-platform issue that Git is catching and is taking care of appropriately. So we have installed Karma, and now we will do an npm rebuild as usual to see if there's any binaries. And unusually, Karma does have a lot of binaries. So what we're going to see after doing this npm rebuild, when we do a git status, we'll see some things that we need to add to our git ignore. And here they are. So go ahead and take these. I'll copy them. On the Mac, I can use Command C. On Windows, you might need to press Enter or go up into the menu and select Copy. So I'll copy these and I will put them in our git ignore file. So let me go ahead and open that. And leave a comment saying these are the Karma binaries. Now I am going to fix the spacing here like that. And there, that all looks good. On Windows, you might need to, it may not handle the wrapping for you properly, so you might need to fix that. So I'm just taking a look at this here and seeing if there's anything special that I need to be concerned about. Doesn't look like it. But I know from experience that in the special case that you have a mixed machine environment where you have both Macintosh machines and Windows machines, as we do with this show where I'm developing on a Mac, but some of you are on Windows, in that special case, there are some things that are installed here on the Mac that are not installed on vanilla Windows. You see, in order to build all these binaries, Karma uses something called node-gyp, GYP. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's some sort of special binary builder. Anyway, it requires Python, and vanilla Windows doesn't have Python installed. So if you try to do an npm rebuild on the current source code that we've got checked in, on Windows, it will fail if you don't have Python installed. Now, the Karma folks know that this is a problem for people who don't have Python, so they've made all of these binaries optional. I presume they have some sort of non-binary fallback, and the binary version is just faster or something like that. So what we can do is we can actually ignore all of these packages, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in as a special thing. Now, because we've already checked these in, it's not enough to just ignore them. We also have to delete them. So what I'm going to do is take each of these lines. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say rm-rf. That means remove the directory and all subdirectories without asking me questions. And I'm going to do that for each one of these lines. Now, if you're on Windows, you don't have to do this because these will not be installed on Windows. And if you're not in a mixed environment with both Mac and Windows, you also don't need to do this because this works just fine on other Macs. It's only when you take the code from Mac to Windows that it doesn't work. And this is unfortunately one of the downsides of checking in your files. When modules aren't designed around the idea of having the source code checked in, you can get kind of wonky behavior. And I sort of ran into this the hard way because I do have a mixed mode environment with some of you on Windows and some of you on Mac. Anyway, so special case probably won't affect the vast majority of you, but if you have Mac and Windows in your environment and you're moving the source code between them, then you do need to do this. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and check in all these files. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to amend our last commit, which was the installed Karma commit. That way, the git ignore and the Karma installation goes in together. And there we go. Now that we've installed Karma, we need to set it up. And Karma is more involved than just running simple Mocha because it does have to run in the browsers, and this adds some complexity. To manage that complexity, Karma has its own configuration file, which we can create by running karma init. Now, we don't have Karma installed globally. It's just installed in our node modules. So I'll run node modules .bin/karma. Those will be backslashes on Windows. And then init, and it will walk us through the initialization process. So it's going to ask us which testing framework we want to use. We're using Mocha, so I'll press Tab to switch over to that. Do we want to use require.js? That's something for modules, a concept we'll get to later. And any sort of things that we need for modules, we will install at that time. Do we want to capture any browsers automatically? The way Karma works is you run the Karma server and then you point your browsers at the Karma server. That's called capturing a browser. Karma will automatically launch browsers for you if you want it to, but I've found that that's a little bit fiddly and it's more convenient just to capture browsers manually. So I'm going to tab through and say no, browsers capture automatically. It wants to know the location of our source and test files. We will tell it that they're all in source, and we'll use a glob star. That's this double star right here. This says all directories inside of source should be included as well. So anything ending in .js that's in our source directory. Do we want to exclude anything? Nope. Do we want Karma to automatically run the tests when files change? That can be really handy, but I prefer to do that at the build level, so I'm going to say no. And there it has created a karma.conf.js. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. It gets put right here in our root directory, the root directory of our project, that is. You can shut down git ignore. And you can see that it has automatically generated a file for us. It has the base path, which we can use if we move the Karma configuration. It has a set of possible plugins that we can use. It's because we told it we're going to use Mocha, it's automatically set up Mocha for us. And it's put in our list of files and the files we want to exclude. The rest of this is stuff that we will come to later. Preprocessors is not something we need to worry about right now. Reporters are how it reports its results. Port is where the server will be. And then the rest of this stuff is more esoteric, and you can find that information in the Karma documentation, particularly here under config. All right, now that we've got it installed, let's go ahead and start it up. Remember, there's two parts here. First, we start the server. So I'm going to say node modules bin karma start, and typically you have to type in the name of the config file, but it defaults to karma.conf.js, so that should just work. So there it goes. It says the server has started, and it says that the server is at serving out of localhost 9876. So we can take this and copy it over into our browser like that, and that captures the browser. Now when Karma runs its tests, it will automatically send your JavaScript down to this browser, run the tests in the browser, and report the results back to the command line. It's very cool. So now that we've got that going, we need to leave this running. So I'm going to open a new tab and run node modules karma.bin karma again. And this time I'm going to tell it to run our tests. And there you go. You can see that it is run. It has run our how-to tab source test.js, but is complaining that require is not defined. And what's happening here is actually a perfect example of the difference between running in Node and running in a browser. Node has this concept. In our test here, we have this require statement, and Node has the concept of loading modules, requiring modules, but that doesn't work in a browser. So when Karma saw that, it just failed. It didn't know what to do. So what I'm going to do for now is simply replace assert with our own code to do an equal function. So let's do it this way. Let's say, for simplicity, let's just write assert equal and bring back that old assert equal function we used to have. Let's see, how did that work? It was our actual value and our expected value. And if actual did not exactly equal expected, we're going to throw a new error saying expected but was actual. And we will come back in the next chapter to this question of modularity. How do you load modules in the browser? But I want you to notice here that we've already found a real bug of sorts in our code that would prevent it from working in the browser. Now, none of this is real production code, so it doesn't really matter if it works in the browser, but that illustrates the point, I think. So now if we run this again, now that we've changed our code, hopefully it will work. And look at that. It has. says it's executed 2 files or 2 tests and seen 2 successes. Karma has its own reporters. Rather than using the Mocha reporter that printed out the check marks, it does its own thing for reporting. And last time I checked, there was a little bug in Karma that when your window width was less than the actual width of the reporting, it didn't overwrite it properly. So what I tend to do is I go into karma.conf.js and I change the reporter, which is here, to dots, which isn't quite as nice, but doesn't have that annoying bug. Now, in order for that configuration file to take effect, we have to go back to our server, kill it, and restart it, which means that we'll have to reload our captured browser, and now we can run again. And you see there is our new reporter in effect. So that's Karma. There's one little gotcha I want to mention here, and that is that if you capture a browser, especially on the Mac, you need to make sure that the browser, some part of the browser window is visible. If the tab is not in the foreground or if it's covered up by other windows, the operating system is smart enough to deprioritize that browser and it will start running really slow. So if you have problems with your test speed, make sure your captured browsers are visible. All right, there is cross-browser testing. Now we can capture as many browsers as we want, and in a future episode, I'll show you how to capture not just Firefox and Safari and Chrome, but also mobile browsers and browsers from other operating systems like IE. But basically, anything that you can point at localhost 9876, even from devices elsewhere on your network, you can run them in Karma, and that is incredibly powerful. So this finishes out the 3 things we need for good automated testing. We have an ability to make assertions. We have a test framework to group our assertions into tests, and we have Karma, our cross-browser test runner that actually runs the tests inside of a real browser. Your exercise for this time is to get Karma working on your code. If you're feeling ambitious, go ahead and take a look at Testem Scripts. It's got a really nice user interface. And if only it was automatable, if only I could run it from my automated build, I would actually prefer it to Karma. So there you have it, the 3 components of test automation. Next time, we're going to go through and clean up and automate what we've done so far. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.